Nationwide demonstrations continue in Argentina following the Supreme Court ruling against former President Cristina Fernández de Kirchner. A new day of demonstrations in support of the popular referendum called by the national government is beginning in Colombia's main cities. And international human rights organizations warned of increasing food crisis among Palestinian people due to Israeli siege. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Alejandra Garcia from teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In Argentina, citizens have gathered outside the Buenos Aires house of former President Cristina Fernández de Kirchner a day after the country's Supreme Court upheld her conviction. The ruling has sparked nationwide demonstrations as followers denounce the political proscription of the leader across cities such as Córdoba, Rosario, Bariloche, Mendoza, Santa Fe, Mar del Plata and Quilmes, among others. In addition, several unions have set up roadblocks on the Pan American Highway and on several sections of the La Plata-Buenos Aires Highway. Meanwhile, students held significant assemblies at universities and approved the occupation of faculties and street blockades. In this context, civil and political forces denounced the sentence against President Milei's most relevant opponent as a form of political persecution. In Argentina, citizens expressed their rejection to the Supreme Court's ruling against former President Cristina Fernández de Kirchner and reiterated their support and solidarity with the former president.
The conviction outrages me because it's the opposite of what can be expected to happen in the judiciary. Four magistrates who violated all the constitutional guarantees handing down a ruling. The conviction after it has already been declared that the case was subsidized and acquitted, that it's a laughingstock. I cannot stay at home because Cristina did a lot of things for all of us. We have to be here supporting her. Today we are more Peronist than ever. We are more Argentine than ever. So let's support our candidate, the one who did everything for us, the one who gave everything.
They wanted to kill her, and now they are putting her in jail. And she has been saying it for a long time, and today was the day. But this is not going to stay like this. Because Peronism is standing here, and Peronism is going to unite from Cristina's house, without any doubt.
In this context, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum sent her solidarity to the Argentine leader after the court's ruling.
We express our full solidarity with Cristina Kirchner. From our point of view, this is more of a political issue, and she has our solidarity.
A new day of demonstrations in support of the popular referendum called by the national government is beginning in Colombia's main cities. The activity, organized by the country's trade unions, aims to defend workers' fundamental rights and pressure the Senate to approve President Gustavo Petro's labor reform. The United Workers Central stated that Wednesday's demonstrations are a rejection of the Colombian right-wing attempts to halt state projects and restrict public participation. Due to the lack of support for the labor reform in the National Congress, the government has called for a popular consultation to allow Colombians to vote on issues related to labor rights and social justice. We stay in Colombia as the fourth and last debate of the labor reform will begin Wednesday with the plenary of the Colombian Senate. This way, the Senate expressed the commitment of the caucus to move forward until a verdict is reached on the initiative. The bill seeks to modify the current labor legislation, which was approved by the Chamber of Representatives in October 2024. As the upper house resumes the debate, trade unions and confederations of pensioners called workers to push for their demands to be met in the legislature. They summoned to a national mobilization rally in the main cities such as Cali, Pereira, Medellín, Barranquilla, Bucaramanga and Bogotá capital. The president of Colombia, Gustavo Petro, announced to preside a meeting in Cali with the military forces to clarify the escalation of violence that hit the southwest of the country. The head of state assured that on the encounter with senior military and police officers, they would study all information on both the regional mafia and the Saturday attack on the senator and presidential pre-candidate for the Union of the Democratic Center, Miguel Uribe. In this regard, the commander of the military forces, Admiral Francisco Cubides, gave instructions to maintain public order, to intensify the operational offensive, and to keep up with the daily work of the police. In Brazil, movements fighting for decent housing marched in Sao Paulo against the wave of evictions promoted by the extreme right-wing governorships that command the mayor's office and the state. Social movements and human rights organizations took to the streets of downtown Sao Paulo to denounce the lack of public policies that guarantee decent housing for the most vulnerable. It is worth noting that so far this year, more than 3,000 families have been evicted in the metropolitan region, many of them without relocation options. These actions put the most vulnerable population at risk and continue to be one of the most urgent issues on the social agenda in Brazil. In Panama, the first round of talks between the banana sector and the National Assembly ended without an agreement amid protests in the capital city against the government's policies. After 10 hours of dialogue, the parties were unable to reach an agreement that would benefit the Panamanian workers who are affected by the reforms to the Social Security Fund promoted by the government. In spite of the lack of agreements, the banana unions informed that they will resume talks on Wednesday in order to address the people's social labor demands. For more than a month, thousands of people took to the streets to protest the national government's failure to meet the sector's demands. Nicaragua's National Institute of Development Information reported significant progress in the fight against inflation. According to the institution, Nicaragua is positioned as one of the most economically stable countries in Central America. In May 2025, monthly inflation measures by the Consumer Price Index stood at 0.17%, which is lower than the 0.60 registered in the same month of 2024. In the same report, authorities highlighted that inflation so far in 2025 reached 1.04% compared to the 2.58% reported in 2024 in the same period. And now we have a short break coming up, but first remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates and more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. The mayor of Los Angeles, Karen Bass, announced Tuesday a limited curfew to go into effect for part of the city's downtown after several nights of violence. According to the city official, the curfew will be in effect from 8 p.m. Tuesday to 6 a.m. Wednesday and may continue for several days. The curfew does not apply to residents who work in the area. The order comes after a weekend of protests that turned violent in the downtown LA area. On Monday, largely peaceful protests during the day were followed by a night of looting and vandalism. Bass said a curfew had been considered for several days, but was deemed necessary after 23 businesses were looted or vandalized Monday night. The President of Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum, rejected accusations by the Secretary of Homeland Security of the United States, Kristi Noem, accusing the head of the Mexican executive in the protest in the city of Los Angeles. At the morning conference, Sheinbaum explained that the idea that the Mexican government would be encouraging violence at the protest in Los Angeles was initiated by opposition figures wanting to create problems between both countries, rejecting the statement made yesterday by U.S. Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem, who pointed to the Mexican president's responsibility for the protest in California. Sheinbaum pointed out that parts of a statement she made several weeks ago have been used to justify protests against the tax on remittances, which are not related to the protest that began last Friday.
From
the outset, we said that we do not agree with raids as a way of dealing with migrants in the United States, and they have the full support of the consulates, but we have never called for violent mobilization, never in our entire lives.
Haitian media outlets have criticized the fact that the state is spending millions of dollars on deputy salaries in a parliament that remains paralyzed to this day. According to local media reports, the Antillean country spends around $4.42 million on the salaries of 3,826 legislative body employees, despite the body having ceased its functions a few years ago. The Ministry of Finance, which issues the checks, has specified that 1,469 Senate employees received over $9.6 million, while 2,357 Chamber of Deputies employees received $12.8 million. The Haitian media also points out that the Ministry of Finance is aware that these workers are being paid for doing nothing, but claims that it does not have the authority to dismiss them, even though they are not providing any service to the state. The governments of Bolivia and China consolidate their strategic relations through agreements on the occasion of the 40th anniversary of the establishment of bilateral relations. The Bolivian Foreign Ministry informed about the progress in the agreements between both countries after a meeting between the Foreign Minister Celine de Sosa and the Ambassador of China to Bolivia, Wang Liang. With a memorandum of understanding for global development, Bolivia details that both countries seek to expand and consolidate relations that promote cooperation in health, poverty reduction, industrialization, and South-South cooperation. The text details that the financing of strategic, technological, and natural disaster projects by Beijing, with which it is positioned as its main commercial partner. The Chinese government, 53 African countries, and the African Union Commission issued a joint declaration in which they established open, inclusive cooperation and against protectionism. The document expresses the result of working meetings between these countries in which they reinforce the voice of the Global South and the importance of cooperation for development, security of the peoples, and for multilateralism. The diplomats stressed the need to work global challenges facing sustainable development and call for the resolution of trade differences in order to increase aid, and also reiterated the commitment to social national justice and the global trade order. The Russian government has confirmed its readiness to hand over the bodies of almost 6,000 Ukrainian servicemen to the Kyiv regime. The spokeswoman of the Russian Foreign Ministry, Maria Zakharova, pointed out that Moscow will comply with the agreements established in Istanbul and expects Ukraine to take the same approach. Furthermore, Zakharova pointed out that the Russian Federation delivered 1,212 bodies of Ukrainian soldiers to Kyiv on June 7th between the Belarusian and Ukrainian borders. However, the Ukrainian regime refused to receive them. In light of this, the Russian government announced that the Ukrainian regime had finally agreed to accept the bodies of 1,212 Ukrainian soldiers after days of refusal. Moscow has specified that Russia and Ukraine will begin exchanging seriously wounded prisoners from the front lines on Thursday, June 12th. Pope Leo XIV received United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres on Wednesday to discuss world peace and current crises across the world. During the meeting held in the studio of the Sixth Lecture Hall at the Vatican City, the two authorities debated on the Holy See's support for the United Nations commitment to world peace and the difficulties the organization is facing while dealing with some of the crises currently unfolding in the world. Guterres met successively with the Vatican Secretary of State Cardinal Pietro Parolin and with Archbishop Paul Richard Gallagher, Secretary for Relations with the States and International Organizations. We have a second shower break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our Facebook page at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to watch our top stories, special live coverage and much more. Follow our page and activate the notification button to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final shower break. Don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. International human rights organizations warned of increasing food crisis among Palestinian people due to Israeli siege. Local media reported that the Israeli regime had besieged the Gaza Strip once again. As a result of such blockade, the entry of basic supplies have been reduced in alarming figures, so that Gazans suffer from famine daily. In addition to the siege, the Netanyahu administration has showed lack of commitment and delays on the permits to enter the enclave. Likewise, international organizations, including the United Nations, urged that humanitarian trucks needed safer and more reliable transit routes due to the insecurity and lawlessness experienced by the Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip. The Palestinian Ministry of Health has announced the collapse of the health system in the northern Gaza Strip, citing restrictions on the entry of medical supplies as the cause. The health organization confirmed that hundreds of patients and injured people are suffering due to a lack of treatment. The hospitals in Gaza that are still operating are at risk of collapse amid the worsening crisis caused by the Israeli occupation. Meanwhile, the health ministry of the Palestinian enclave has called on the authorities to intervene and rescue the territory's health system. Amid the collapse of the health system due to the ongoing Israeli aggression, at least 20 children were wounded in the Gaza Strip and have left for treatment abroad. Dozens of ambulances from the Palestinian Red Crescent were preparing to evacuate patients and their families from Deir al-Balas, city in the center of the Palestinian enclave. The children who left were seriously injured, many of them having been injured by Israeli shellings of their homes during the holidays. Meanwhile, the Gazan Health Ministry reported that more than 10,000 sick and wounded people are in need of treatment outside the Gaza Strip, where there is a severe shortage of medicines and medical supplies. Austria came to a standstill on Wednesday to mourn victims of one of the worst outbreaks of violence in its modern history, as authorities search for clues to why a 21-year-old gunman shot dead 10 people at his former high school before killing himself. The dead were commemorated with a minute's silence at 10 a.m. local time. Churches rang funeral bells, including St. Stephen's Cathedral in Vienna, where around 900 public transport vehicles halted for a minute. 6 girls and 3 boys, aged 14 to 17, were among the victims. All the dead, bearing one Polish youth, were Austrian citizens. A teacher died from her injuries and 11 people injured are in stable condition. Police said the man had acted alone in Tuesday's rampage, armed with a shotgun and a pistol. They also stated that he had left a farewell note and video that did not reveal the motive for the attack. In this context, Austria declared 3 days of national mourning. An unprecedented heat wave in May caused temperatures in Iceland and Greenland to soar several degrees above normal, dangerously accelerating the melting of the Arctic ice sheet. This was revealed by an analysis published on Wednesday by a World Weather Attribution, which directly associates the phenomenon to climate change caused by human activity. According to the study, Greenland's ice sheet melted 17 times faster than the previous average. According to a study published in 2022 in the scientific journal Nature, the Arctic region is at the forefront of global warming, heating up 4 times faster than the rest of the planet since 1979.
So what we found by looking at this extreme heat, particularly over Iceland, but we also looked over parts of Greenland, that it was an absolute record-breaking event. So it was much hotter than May has ever been in Iceland. At least so it was the hottest 1 week that Iceland has ever had in May. With this study, it is super obvious, as you've said, with the melting of the Greenland ice sheet, the potential impacts on the global ocean circulation, that basically is an extreme event that affects the whole world, even though most of the people on this planet won't have heard of this heat wave.
Brian Wilson, the leader of the legendary U.S. rock band from the 60s, the Beach Boys, died at the age of 82. His death was announced Wednesday by his family, but no further details were provided as to the cause of death, when and where he died. Wilson's genius for melody arrangements and wide-eyed self-expression inspired hit songs that made him one of the world's most influential of recording artists. The Beach Boys rank among the most popular groups of the rock era, with more than 30 singles in the top 40 and worldwide sales of more than $100 million. The 1966 album Pet Sounds was voted number 2 in a 2003 Rolling Stone list of the best 500 albums, losing out only to the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. The group was voted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1988. And like this, we have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net and join us on social media. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram and TikTok as well. For TeleSUR English, I'm Alejandra Garcia. Thank you for watching.
El mundo se mueve con